Ladies, gentlemen, and tarnished of all ages, Shadow of the Erdtree has a lot of crazy things going on that can improve your general gameplay experience, and while some of the exploration is a bit more obvious than it did feel in the base game, there is also the existence of these hanging pots in tons of places around the DLC. Incredibly hard to notice, especially if you aren't aware that they even are a thing to begin with, and if you hit these with a ranged attack, they pop open and drop a bellbearing. Yeah, a full-on bellbearing. This is just one example of a useful item that has gone mostly unnoticed or unused in the DLC, and today we're just going to go over a little collection of things exactly like this. And to start off with, this first one I have talked about a couple of times myself already, but just to really drive it home, there is a consumable version of the Golden Vow buff available in Shadow of the Erdtree. This is stronger than the version that takes up an Ash of War slot. It is literally a better buff, though it is slightly weaker than the incantation version, while also, though, not requiring 25 faith to use in the first place. This item is simply better for a lot of builds than working in Golden Vow another way, as it's a lot of level investment. The only downside is, of course, that it is not infinite or sold infinitely or anything like that. It is a consumable, and it is one that requires farming its materials out a bit if you want to craft more. That said, it is really good and has especially good use for things like the Colosseum PvP game mode that returns your items that you use when you exit, or things like having it on your bar if you're running like a Mimic tier as a summon, as they will use your items without consuming them, which is a unique extra bonus here too. As for how to get this one, you can find a few, but you'll mostly just want the cookbook, which allows you to get the crafting recipe for this, and that is found in this tent here in the Messmer soldier camp, located south of the Shadow Keep. And this is what it looks like to actually go in and get it as well. Second up then, we have a fun little item with a bit of a secret. This is festive grease. This functions like the other weapon greases in the game, stick it on a weapon and it adds an effect. But this one is pretty unique in that its effect is to give you 25 runes for each time that you hit an enemy with this on. The secret that it has then is that this actually boosts your damage while it's on as well, despite not telling you that it will. It seems to give you specifically holy damage on your weapon, though it is less than the new golden grease, which has the main purpose of adding holy damage, but it is still just a nice little bonus to an effect that's already interesting. This also, though, stacks with things like the celebrant weapons from the base game. As for how to get this then, this is again a cookbook type of deal, and this is in the Fort of Reprimand in the Shadow Altus region. From the Grace right here in the middle, turn this corner to find this little room. There's a boss in here the first time, and behind that is a staircase. Up here you'll find a ladder. Climb the ladder to find a chest at the top that has the cookbook that you're after. Then you may be thinking, oh, well, but that is a bit of a pain to have to craft, right? Well, our next item is the Greasemonger's bellbearing, one of only a few bellbearings in the DLC, and this lets you buy an infinite supply of root and knot resin, one of the required crafting materials for every kind of weapon grease that is in the game. This makes farming those just a much simpler process as a result. To get this one for yourself, you need to go to this spot right here, south of the Church District High Road, site of Grace, and behind this lovely group of turtles, you will see a pot hanging that you can shoot to drop it down and get this bell bearing for yourself. On a similar note to that though, there is the String Seller's bell bearing, which, well, lets you buy string. It may sound a little bit silly if you don't understand it, but this is an important crafting ingredient for just a whole load of things in the game, including the drawstring variant greases, so it all just sort of comes together with the last entry. To get this one then, this is held up in another one of these hanging pots, this one south of the Cliff Road Terminus site of Grace, and the little trench below Prospect Town right over here. Break the pot, get the bearing, bring it to the round table hold, and enjoy your brand new infinite supply of string. Fifth up then is Dragon Communion Flesh. This is a consumable and a less powerful version of the extremely limited Dragon Scale Flesh, but this one can be crafted on repeat using the right cookbook, which makes it a bit easier to recommend to use. This increases your vigor, your endurance, your strength, and dexterity, all by 6 levels each, so quite a lot of value from a singular item at the cost of draining a relatively low amount of your health per second, like significantly less than the Bloodsucking tier as an example. This makes it especially good for a quality type build that would take advantage of both the strength and dexterity, but this importantly just lets you put around 24 level up points into different stats than you normally would if you'd use all these stats, as long as you have these around for bosses specifically or something along those lines. The cookbook to get these on your crafting list then is located right here, just beside the Jagged Peak Mountainside site of Grace, just right around this corner of the cliff line over here. Then at the end of the little path behind some slimes, you will see this corpse, which is where the cookbook will be. 6th then today is the Herbalist Bellbearing, and this lets you buy one thing and one thing only, Rata Fruit, the new basic fruit crafting material within the DLC. This is used for a lot of things, one of the main ones being Dragon Communion Flesh. Yes, I know, I'm trying to tie this whole thing together relatively nicely, just give you things that are useful for each other as well. And this is the exact reason that this one is on the list. As for how to get it then, this comes from another hanging pot, this one right here on your map, which is on the path from the Pillar Path Waypoint site of Grace, between this and the Dragon's Pit site of Grace. Once you find the spot, shoot the pot down, get your reward, bring it home, and then you can buy some fruits. Finally then today, one last particularly useful item then, the Hefty Freezing Pot. This is quite simply a massive explosion of frostbite buildup that you throw at enemies, and it does some damage on landing as well, making it quite hard for enemies to avoid just because of the size of the explosion. Though it doesn't seem to apply a whole lot more frostbite buildup than the regular frostbots do. That said, the main use is the extended size of this, as well as interestingly, because you can get to the DLC before you technically unlock base frostbots in the base game, you can actually get these in steady supply long before you get those, if you want to do a weird route like that. That said, if you do want these, to craft them you need to get their cookbook, the Greater Potentate Cookbook 11, and this comes from the Bellarat Jail. Specifically, as you progress through the dungeon, you'll eventually drop into a sort of maze-like jar room, but it's just easier if I show you the full path, so let's let that play out. And then you get to this final corner, guarded by this final enemy. The item will be on the floor, under this corpse that is against the jar. That just about does it for today then, everyone. A nicely sized collection of items that you probably aren't using that maybe you should consider using. I hope you've enjoyed this, and hopefully you get some use out of these different items. And of course, there are some more of these too in the DLC if you do want to hear about them, so let us know about that in the comments down below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe with the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.